Hi, friends. Welcome to Getting Started with Azure SQL Database, a beginner's guide. My name is John Morehouse. I'm going to be your tour guide for today. A little bit about me. I'm a principal consultant with Denny Cherry Associates Consulting. My contact information is on the slide before you. You are welcome to email me or reach out to me on any platform that you see listed there. I'm happy to answer questions about this quick video, or if you've got SQL Server questions in general, I am happy to answer them. Try to anyway. I'm honored to be a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. I've been a community speaker for many years. Uh, I'm also a friend of Redgate, so I'm happy to teach and give back. So, in this video, we're going to showcase the Azure SQL Database platform. What does it mean? What offerings does it have that I think are important? And then we're going to do a quick demo, so you can see how easy and how versatile the platform is to stand up in Azure SQL Database. So, what is Azure SQL Database? That is this is Microsoft's definition of what it is. It is a fully managed platform as a service that really does the day-to-day management functions such as patching, upgrades, uh, backups, even provides some level of monitoring right out of the box for us as IT professionals. So we don't have to worry about it. You'll notice that the URL is located in the lower left-hand corner. You are welcome to go do more reading about what Microsoft thinks the platform is, get better understanding. And so we're going to talk about what is that platform as a service? What does that really mean? So the image before you on the far left, you'll notice the on-premises environment. That really is when I started my IT career, that's what we had to handle. You'll notice that everything in the green are things that I have to manage. So it would be my responsibility with an on-premises environment that I manage the data, the access, the applications, the operating system, the virtual machine, the host, the storage, the entire back end. The entire stack is fully responsible by the myself or the IT professional. As we move into cloud offerings, we have a couple different flavors. We have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. You'll notice as we move further to the right into the cloud offerings, the cloud provider, in our case, Microsoft, it takes on more responsibility. Those are the cells that you see shown in blue. So, such as infrastructure as a service, which is essentially a virtual machine in the cloud, Microsoft is going to handle the back end compute, the networking, and the storage. And then everything on top of the virtual machine, including the virtual machine, we have to manage. So we have to install Windows, install SQL, install any other application that you want, and then also manage the data access. So it's our responsibility to say patch the virtual machine. If we move into platform as a service, which is the third column from the left, you'll notice that our responsibilities get reduced and Microsoft's increases because they're the cloud provider. So, platform as a service, anything from the application and up, we have to manage. In our case, our application is SQL Server. So, we get a SQL database, we get some components of the SQL Server, but anything on top of that, data access, the database, the data contained within the database, we have to manage and control. Microsoft will manage everything underneath SQL Server, including the virtual machine host, the compute, the storage, the networking. We can specify some attributes of those services, meaning that we can select the number of vCores, or how much compute we want, or how much storage we want. But Microsoft is going to be responsible for actually managing that hardware behind the scenes. We don't have to worry about it. Makes our job as data professionals a little bit easier, in my opinion. I love the platform as a service offering. A couple things about Azure SQL Database that I think are important and what it brings to the table. First and foremost, automatic backups. I love that I can deploy a mission critical database to the platform, and platform itself is going to automatically take backups for me. These backups happen on a schedule. They do a weekly full, and then by default they do two daily differentials spaced about 12 hours apart. You can reconfigure that to be one daily differential if you so. And then transaction log backups are taken everywhere from 4 to 7 minutes, depending on the workload of the server. Um, and those backups are taken automatically. I don't have to worry about it. So I know that every Azure SQL database I deploy automatically will have backups taken for me. One of the caveats is that you can't get access to those physical files. We can't download them and use them in our on-premises environment. We can restore them to other Azure SQL Database instances, but we can't actually download them. We get 7 days of point in time restore by default. That point in time restore capability can be extended to 35 days. And then Microsoft also offers a long term retention of full backups for up to 10 years. So you've got some flexibility on how you want to manage your backups, even with the platform. Automatic updates, also one of those really key features. I've done deployments and updates in the past on my on-premises environment where they've gone sideways. Sometimes they're difficult to resolve, sometimes they're not. In this case, though, the platform is going to handle all the updates. So Microsoft will patch the operating system. Microsoft will patch SQL Server, which means that if you deploy Azure SQL Database, you are running the latest and greatest of Windows and or SQL Server, pretty close to it. So letting them handle those updates, I think, is a key component of the platform. Baked in native high availability. If I deploy a database into a data center, an Azure region or zone, that database out of the gate is going to have baked in high availability. By default, we have 3 copies within that data center. So if one replica goes down, another one is there to take its place and to ensure that my applications and my consumers aren't having issues getting to their data. Back in my day, again, I've been around for quite a number of years. I remember trying to configure high availability was a struggle because we didn't have the resources to actually provide high availability. With Azure SQL Database, we get it out of the gate. I think that's a great offering from Microsoft. Seamless scalability. Um, Again, back in the day, scaling your hardware was a long and potentially cumbersome endeavor. You had to figure out what you wanted to go to in terms of hardware resources. You had to get a quote from the vendor. You had to get a PO from accounting. You had to order the hardware, wait for it to show up, put it together, test it, rack it, stack it. Just a long and drawn out process. With Azure SQL Database, we can scale those resources, such as compute and storage, pretty quickly within the Azure portal or even from command line. So I can scale databases within a few minutes, depending on things. And then for like, I have a client that their busy season, during their busy season, they scale up their Azure SQL databases. And then when their busy season has completed, they scale back down to help save costs. Those are really simple operations, and those scaling times usually happen within 5-6 minutes. So that's a really cool feature that is offered by Azure SQL. Real quick, just a high level look at what kind of purchasing models we have. We have 2. On the far left is the DTU model, and DTU stands for Database Transaction Unit. And that unit is a bundled measure of compute, storage, and IO. And the compute and the storage are coupled together. That means is that if I increase the storage, I have to increase the compute. Vice versa, if I increase the compute, I have to increase the storage. Those are great for customers who need a pre-configured option. It's a great solution, especially for like the lower end of the DTU models for dev and test. And then on the right, we have the vCore model. This model is a more granular model that allows you to scale vCores and storage independently of each other. So they are not coupled together. If you want that flexibility to control those 2 attributes independently, the vCore model might be a good solution for you. Now, within each model, we have different tiers that you can select from. In the DTU model, we have the basic, standard, and premium. In the vCore model, we have the general purpose, the business critical, and the hyperscale. I would recommend that if you're interested in the platform, do some due diligence and research those individual tiers because they might be architected differently behind the scenes and provide different levels of capability and performance. Especially when you get into the business critical and the hyperscale, things are architected differently. So I recommend that you just do due diligence. Okay, what's needed to create an Azure SQL database? First and foremost, we got to have a Azure SQL account. You can go out to Microsoft and create an account. It's relatively straightforward. You also need an active subscription. So once you have an account, you have to create an active subscription. If you work for an organization that may or may not already be in Azure Cloud, they might have a subscription that they can get you access to play around with. I would advise you to go talk to your administrators and see what they got. If you need help, Microsoft actually developed a quick 2-minute video. If you go out to that bit.ly link that you see before you, Azure free account, you can walk through that 2-minute video and they show you how to create your account. Now, one of the cool things that Microsoft does is they actually give you free resources on a monthly basis, and Azure SQL Database is actually one of them. So if you create a free account, you actually can get 100,000 vCore serverless compute um, and 32 gigs of storage every single month. That's a great offering from Microsoft. You can go out there and test it, kick the tires, take it for a test drive, see if it'll work for your requirements. Absolutely free without any charge to you. So make sure to take advantage of that if you're getting into Azure SQL Database. Okay, with that, we're going to jump over to the Azure portal, and we're going to quickly create an Azure SQL Database, and so you can see how versatile the platform is. Ta-da! We're in the portal. So this is my Azure portal. You can see it's nice and clean. It's well architected. If you're new to the Azure portal, you can go up to search resources and type in Azure SQL. You'll see that the services drop down. You'll see there's a wide range of services that you can look for to see if Microsoft offers it. In our case, we're going to select Azure SQL. This quickly dropped us into a blade that shows you my Azure SQL resources. We can see that I've got SQL Server and SQL databases here, Cloud City, Empire, Naboo, Rebellion Alliance. You might notice a Star Wars theme here, but so in our case, we're going to create a simple single database. We're going to click the Create button. In this blade, we actually see 3 different options: SQL Database on the left, Managed Instance, and then Virtual Machines. SQL Managed Instance is also Platform as a Service, and then SQL Virtual Machines are Infrastructure as a Service. So in this blade, you can choose which one you want to create. In our case, we're going to do SQL databases. We're going to do a single database. We're going to click Create. This is going to drop us into the next blade where we get to configure what our database is going to look like, and we'll walk through this. And one of the nice things is that they give you a rough idea on the cost for that database, depending on what you configure. If we scroll down, we'll notice that it automatically highlighted and selected the subscription that I wanted. I have a resource group already created called SQL DB. If you're not familiar with what a resource group is, think about it just as a container that has resources in it. And so as I create databases or virtual machines or anything else, I can put it within that container. What's really nice about that is that when I'm done, if I delete the container, everything within it gets deleted as well. So I'm going to use my existing SQL DB resource group. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to give it a simple name, Demo1. We can see that it got validated and it is correct. There are some limitations on how you can name your databases. I'm going to use an existing server that I already have, Starship Enterprise. And yes, I'm crossing streams between Star Wars and Star Trek. That's okay. I'm going to scroll down a little further. I'm not going to use an elastic pool. I am going to select a development workload. If you so desire, you can choose production. I'm going to scroll down a little bit further, and I'm going to say configure my compute. This will drop me into a blade where I get to choose my purchasing model, so DTU or vCore, and the service tier within that model. So if I drop this down, we can see our vCore and our DTU, and then our 3 options for each one. In my case, I'm going to select general purpose. I'm going to scroll down, say provisioned. This will mean that my compute are pre-allocated. It gives you some descriptions. We can see that my cost has been changing as I make changes. If I scroll down, if I have a SQL Server licensing, you may be able to save some money with Azure Hybrid Benefit. Definitely take a look at that. And then I can adjust the number of vCores. Now, if you remember that in the vCore model, my vCores and my storage are independent of each other. So I can scale this all the way up to 128 cores. If I do that, I can go all the way up to 4 terabytes. So in my case, I'm just going to go with 2 cores. And I'm going to say 32 gigs of storage because that's plenty for my demo purposes. Let's go with 40. 40 works. We can see that my estimated cost is $374. I'm going to click apply. By default, the backups are going to be geo-redundant. What that means is that those backups will be taken, and then the backups themselves are replicated to a paired region elsewhere within the Azure ecosystem. That's for a disaster recovery purposes, so that if the region goes down, I can still get access to my backup. This is a demo box. I'm looking to save money, so I'm going to select locally redundant backup storage, which means those backup files are not going to be created anywhere. Totally fine for a demo database. I'm going to click review and create. I can see a quick overview as to how this database is going to look once I get it created. And everything looks good to me. I got a rough idea as to what it's going to cost me, $375 a month. I'm going to click create. It's going to validate my configuration that I've selected. It's going to then submit the deployment to the various APIs within the Azure ecosystem. And we can see that our statuses have kind of started to change. My server itself, Starship Enterprise, is okay. It accepted the deployment. And so right now, those APIs are going out to actually create the database and get it implemented on the Starship Enterprise server. Typically, this deployment will only take a few minutes, depending on how you configured it, and it needs to carve out 4 terabytes of storage. It all depends on various things. I've never seen it take longer than 5 or 6, but we will sit here and wait until that deployment is done, and then we can go take a look at it and make sure it came online successfully. So our deployment finished. It is complete. We get 2 notifications, one in the upper right hand corner, and then this blade tells us that the deployment was completed successfully. If we click on go to resource, it'll take us to our database. We can see that we have demo 1 on Starship Enterprise. It is online. It's located in East US, and everything looks hunky-dory. So very quickly, within a few minutes, we showed you how to quickly stand up an Azure SQL Database. And now this database is ready to accept a workload and do whatever you need it to do. So let's jump back to the slides, and then we will go ahead and get wrapped up. Okay, that's pretty much it. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this brief introduction, beginner's guide to Azure SQL Database. You can see how easy it was to stand up the database, and you got some highlights that I think are important about the platform. Until next time, I'll see you in the cloud.